Welcome to another episode of Prince Manufacturing Podcast. Today we continue speaking with Michael Smith, one of our business development executives, and we continue to talk about shelter manufacturing in Mexico. Last time we talked about different operations in Mexico, different four ways how you can operate in Mexico. We talked about what is shelter program. We also talk about some advantages of operating under shelter. And then today we'll continue with some more advanced concepts. Michael, welcome first of all. And second of all, why don't you start us with this question? Are there variants or variations to shelter program, such as startups, incubations? You may also want to elaborate on what differentiates us from other shelter providers.
Sure. Well, good morning, Mark. Thanks for having me on again. Absolutely. We've heard many different types of shelter companies. A lot of times it's misconstrued. You know what actually a manufacturing shelter service does provide. There are companies that help foreign companies establish a manufacturing presence in Mexico using their legal entity as a startup or an incubation. That may be a small company that may want to come into Mexico and test the waters. They may not want to come in and do a full investment of the previous concepts that we talked about last week in regards to the greenfield, the brownfield, the partnerships, the joint ventures, whatever that may be. But some shelter organizations do offer the real estate and the capabilities to have a company come in and set up a small operation within either an existing client or within their own operations. We call that sort of an incubation. So what happens is it takes, that the client then gets to see how an operation works short term without the full exposure of a full commitment going down there to start out with. There'll be a contract, there will be an agreement, but it's an incubation. You'll be under somebody else's contract agreement in regards to the building, the people, so on and so forth, just to see how the operation runs, right? Then there is the full service shelter, as we mentioned last week, where buildings, people, import, export, regulatory compliance, all is being handled by your shelter company, once again under that legal framework of the shelter company. What differentiates Prince Manufacturing somewhat from other shelter companies is that we have the ability to do the manufacturing, the purchasing, the assembly, and the testing and the QA inspection on behalf of our clients. So basically run the operation on behalf of the customer, still fall within the legal frameworks of a shelter company. So I think I have a few slides that we could actually show just to go over those points again, just for a little more clarity. So I don't know if they're available to be popped up or not.
Yes, they are. Let me share our screen with the audience. All right, go ahead, Michael.
Okay. All right. So as we recapped last week regarding the whole shelter company or concept is, you're operating a manufacturing presence in Mexico, working with a U.S.-based company such as ourselves, Prince Manufacturing, in the U.S. Prince has a legal entity in Mexico, so Prince clients are departments of Prince's legal entity. So all legal physical presence in Mexico, are the responsibility of Prince, which helps reduce the risk, for the client. So we take all responsibility for the employees, so on and so forth. So when we draft up our shelter agreements, they're all under U.S. law. It's a U.S.-based contract. As you said, our head office is in South Carolina. We have also offices in Holland, Michigan, El Paso, Texas, Asheville. Head offices in Lexington, and again in Garrett, Indiana. All right. So going to the examples. Next slide.
All right.
Okay. So Traditional shelter program, we mentioned last week, the benefits were by having your service provider, such as Prince, running the shelter program, you're able to focus and concentrate on your core benefits, and that is manufacturing your goods. Assembly, fabrication, design, engineering, quality control, material purchasing, that all falls within, the activity of the client. All right. So we would hire the people on the behalf of the client, and you would focus strictly on your manufacturing concepts, and we would say handle the employees, the social services, the import export, and all the regulatory compliance that you need to operate in Mexico. Next. So as mentioned, these are the services that typically fall under the traditional shelter program. We help you hire the people, payroll and benefit. We help you do the accounting and understand the tax implications in Mexico. Import export under the custom logistics. We help you find the required building square footage and amenities that's needed in order to run your operation. Cafeterias, employee cafeterias are optional. Permitting and legal requirements, any sort of permits, environmental regulations required. We help you get those as well. Industrial concierge, we provide all that expertise and benefit in order to help set up your facility. And MRO purchases, any consumable goods that are required that don't actually go into the product, we have as a throughput cost to our clients. So anything that you need, such as work gloves, brooms, dustbane, any sort of personal protective equipment, PPE, we can purchase on your behalf in Mexico, so you don't have to ship it down from the US or Canada or Europe, and it'll help save the additional cost as well. Next slide.
Great. Before we go to the next slide, Michael, so the last two slides, just to remind the audience, and for those of you who listen on audio only, you can look at those slides on our YouTube channel. So the last two slides talked about traditional shelter. Yeah. And just to recap, the traditional shelter is where a foreign entity from US or Europe basically focuses on manufacturing and their core manufacturing or engineering activities. And then the shelter provider, such as Prince Manufacturing, would then take care of all the other activities that are displayed on one of those slides, which is the human resources, payroll, accounting, customs logistics, real estate, the buildings, et cetera. So I think the next slide, Michael, you will also talk about, especially on what makes Prince Shelter Program special and different, that provides more benefits to the customers.
Absolutely. Yeah, it definitely is the difference between traditional shelter programs is because Prince Manufacturing is a contract manufacturing company, and we have 2 facilities in Mexico as well as facilities in the US. We have expertise in manufacturing, purchasing, operational, concierge service, order processing, and shipping. Within our facilities in Mexico, we were able to not only provide the traditional services of a shelter, but if you require us to do manufacturing, such as fabrication and assembly, purchasing the materials, ordering goods that go into the process, and assembly, quality, testing, we can do that as well. So that differentiates Prince from a lot of the traditional shelter companies that are out there. is that we are an all-encompassing service provider that not only provides the manufacturing services, but also we can perform them as well. So it would be we would work with our clients, understand their procedures, make sure that, we use their processes. Any sort of processing changes, would have to be bought off and approved through the client, absolutely, and stamped off. But if you require us to do the manufacturing or fabrication of those products in Mexico on your behalf, we can still do that under the shelter concept and under legal entity of Prince Manufacturing. So that's a real game changer from what we really see out there traditionally within the shelter markets, is the ability to actually manufacture the goods for our clients and been able to ship them as well.
Michael, let me just diverse a little bit. I'm putting you on the spot here. Isn't that also very beneficial, especially for those companies who are considering moving out of China back to North America, that they partner with some specialists who not only do shelter in Mexico, but also provide contract manufacturing?
Yeah, absolutely. We're seeing a trend in that, Merrick, by the way. A lot of companies are starting to, pull work out of China for reasons, that are under our client's jurisdiction. But they instead of having to going out and buying brand new equipment, shipping them down to Mexico, finding a building, hiring the people, they are looking for somebody such as Prince Manufacturing who has that expertise, has existing equipment, has people, and say, look, this would be an easier transition for us to move our existing goods that are primarily basically being done the same way over in China. If they're being subcontract manufactured by a company in China, being exported out back into the States or Canada, and either warehoused and shipped to their clients or directly shipped to their clients, or back to the customer's factory for secondary processing or additional value add. But now this is something that we've seen as a huge trend in the last 8 months to a year, on companies bringing back goods without wanting the full exposure of having to buy new equipment and setting up a brand new manufacturing facility in Mexico. And they're testing the waters. This is also a great opportunity to say, hey, look, I've been manufacturing in China now for the last number of years. Political and manufacturing and geographic dynamics have changed somewhat. I still am looking for that cost competitive advantage to compete in a global market. What should I do? Well, this is a great opportunity. This is a great opportunity to say, well, okay, let's try Mexico. Yes, and we can try manufacturing in Mexico by considering this hybrid process.
Excellent. I absolutely. And for those of you who are hearing this and maybe interested in some kind of detailed cost analysis of what your current manufacturing costs or expenditures are, we do offer a deep analysis, and we do offer a recommendation of your cost manufacturing if you were to move your operations to Mexico or under Prince Shelter Program, either US or Mexico. If you're interested, just go to the website, princemanufacturing.com, and submit the contact us form. In comments, mention that you would like to, you'll be interested in that cost analysis and or deeper presentation about Prince program plus contract manufacturing offering that we have. All right, Michael, thank you so much. I'm gonna stop sharing the screen, and then we will return to our regularly scheduled programming, as they say. The next question I'd like to ask you is, how is the manufacturing space provided by the shelter operator? Is it a shared space or is it an independent facility?
Okay, great question. As the previous question, we had 3 examples. One would be the incubation Incubation could be a shared space, usually is because you're working with a client that's already established under the shelter framework. So you go in, there's usually square footage set up that your operation can be manufactured in and under. It'd be shared resources, common spaces, so on and so forth. Your product would be designated to a certain area, if so required. Under a traditional shelter program, usually it's an independent space required by our clientele. Is when we do the interviewing process or we're contacted by our clients, one of the questions within our questionnaire is what kind of space do you require? Square footage, what sort of power is required, how many KVRs, transformers, do you need drop downs? Do you need, what services is your process dependent upon water, electricity, gas, so on and so forth. So we understand the requirements of our customer. So we help them find that real estate, and it's totally independent. It's your manufacturing process. It's your company. It's basically, it's like operating your own facility in the US or Canada or Europe. The people, even though there are employees legally under the framework of the shelter, they're team players under your organization. You're manufacturing your product through your processes on your machines within bricks and mortar, which we happen to be leasing. All right. So under Prince Manufacturing, we have no right to go in and dictate or tell people what they do. That's under the people in which you require us to hire, such as your plant manager, your supervisor. That's all run by your corporate north of the border. So totally private. Any sort of personnel issues, you have contact with one of our HR people. That's how that's dealt with. If you have a requirement to have one of our HR people within your facility, those arrangements can be made as well. But it's definitely your own building, and it's private. Whatever signage you want with your name on it outside the door, that's your requirement as well. So, but when it comes to the hybrid, same thing. Depends on what the client's requirement is. Once again, we'll hire we'll get the building, we can fly your flag, put you up your personal sign, so on and so forth. But it would be, our manufacturing processes that, usually under a hybrid process is that we would use our existing equipment, our processes, our people, and that would have to be negotiated in regards to, the product being run, load capacity, and all that sort of thing.
That makes sense. Thanks, Mike. How about how does the shelter program minimize risk in Mexico for the client? I know we touched on it in our last episode, but would you like to elaborate on it a little more?
Well, risk is, we have this conversation, quite a bit, is that you are basically manufacturing in a foreign country. A lot of times where you're not familiar with the culture, the tax laws, the legal systems, the environmental processes, so on and so forth. How to, import goods, how to export goods, all those are, a huge risk. By working under a shelter company, that minimizes the risk. You're dealing with somebody who's done business in this country for more than 2 decades. We have an established manufacturing presence there. We have hundreds of people under our employment. So by reducing the risk, you have to worry about, the import, the export. It's something we do every day. Hiring people, managing people is something we do every day. Tax implications, it's something that we do for our clients on a day in, day out basis. We have reminders. Any sort of annual audits, regulations and requirements. We have people on staff that provide reminders to our clients that, it's the end of the fiscal year, there's taxation, you have to, do your reporting on the machinery that you brought in, so on and so forth. So, by reducing the risk, you're there to put yourself in a cost competitive advantage.
Mm-hmm.
You have your people that are in place there to focus on manufacturing.
Mm-hmm.
You want somebody who you're working with that can, deal with the day-to-day issues with the people, your import, your export, and making sure that these things are done seamlessly and flawlessly. So you don't have to worry about small hiccups, such as, paperwork. Like I said, the import-export seems to be a huge issue with a lot of our clients not understanding how to bring goods and export goods in out of Mexico. Same thing with work severance and hiring and firing processes. A plant supervisor could be tied up, for days on end if he's not familiar with those processes. And we take those, those issues off the table.
Mm-hmm.
We manage those for our clients so the clients can focus in exactly for the reasons why they're there, manufacturing good quality products that they can deliver on time to their clients.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. As part of the risk management, I think also the discussion of IP, intellectual property, falls under, and I know it's a deeper subject, probably for another time. But we hear horror stories from China where people just steal your IP. How does the IP, intellectual property situation looks like in Mexico?
Yeah. Well, I don't want to accuse anybody of stealing anything. I always get in trouble. But no, definitely low risk. I'm doing this for a number of years. And by working with a country like Mexico, people want to work, bottom line. Mexico's not interested in stealing IP to be more globally competitive, than other countries such as US, Canada, or Europe. They're there as a good, solid trading partner that is there to, provide the benefits of their labor and their talents and their education. There's a lot of trade that goes on. We talk about just manufacturing, but Mexico is an incredible trade partner with the US, Canada, and Europe. And we talk about intellectual property. You know what? It goes both ways. We share so much, in our educational systems and through our industry, our trade sharing through different associations, either be in aerospace, automotive, medical devices. There's collaborations worldwide and across continents and across countries. But when it comes to, sending a good down to Mexico to be manufactured, you're not going to see it, on Amazon or some other website, being sold for pennies on the dollar because somebody has ripped off, your idea. IP is very, very well protected. They're not interested in stealing your IP. They're interested in having a job, create a living, for their families, and being a good corporate citizen. And that's what Mexico has been and remains to be, is a good corporate citizen to its trading partners.
Exactly right. Thanks, Mike. That was great. I think we would just wrap it up right now by thanking you again for your insights. If you're interested in a personal presentation, as I mentioned before, of Prince Shelter Manufacturing Program, please contact us via contact form on the website, and Mike and others will be happy to spend some time with you answering your personal questions. Thank you very much, Mike.
Merrick, my pleasure as always. Thank you.